Hi, Dr. Kumar.
Hey, Tanya,
How you doing?
I'm doing great. Awesome. Thank you. Back on track. Summer vacation is over.
I think it's still summer, right?
It's a freaking hot summer. Holy cow.
Yeah, I miss chatting with you. I think today's conversation is going to be interesting, and it's a lot of people are worried about it, and I want to just kind of like touch base with you on your thoughts and what are the data showing, what the research, what are people saying across the country. So again, this is a short health spaces. It's going to be 30 minutes, and if anyone that decides to ask questions at the end of this, we put out the mic the last 5 minutes of it. So when you grab the mic, know that you're being live streamed, and it's also being recorded because we write a blog about it and we promote it through all the social networks. So, and here we are. I'm here with Dr. Kumar. How are you? And I can't wait to chat with you. How's it
All
going?
right. Let's get started. If everybody's ready, I'm ready to go.
I'm ready. I'm gonna start. There we go. I'm ready.
Okay, cool. Hey, listen. So, Tanya, so I've had a bunch of my colleagues and buddies who have been traveling over the past couple of weeks, and I've found a bunch of them when they come back home with activation of COVID. Okay, so this includes doctors, nurses, non-medical personnel who were not exposed to patients. Right. So these folks were traveling. So some of them had gone down to California, Yosemite National Park. Some of them had gone abroad. Some of them had gone to India, England, Germany, Switzerland, and a significant number of them came back and were diagnosed with COVID. So one of the issues is, I think, we have not been able to. Uh, Tanya, can you turn down the music?
Oh no, we don't have any music going.
Oh, I don't know why I'm getting the music here. Hold on one second. Okay. Oof, that was nasty.
Yeah, I didn't hear anything.
Okay, let me see. There's some music going on. Let me turn that off. Give me one second. Oh, yeah, yeah. I got it. Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Yep, you're perfect.
All right. Cool. Cool. So this was not related to exposure in the hospital setting or among patients with COVID, right? So that's a whole different category. But I'm talking about patients who were out in the public. And this spike I've noticed only for the past couple of weeks. We did not see the spike way back. So, doing some research on this, if you look at what CNN is putting up right now, screaming headlines about how the new COVID variant is raging across the US. And we believe that there's an underestimation of the number of cases that are out there, mainly because we've cut down on the number of testing that we've been doing, the screening that we've been doing. So we kind of let our guard down, and they believe, again, this is guesswork. There may be at least a million new cases being diagnosed every day that we are missing. Now, the good part is most of these patients that, or the folks that I know came down with COVID, really did not require a hospitalization. Okay. And most of the folks that I know have been vaccinated. So between having a vaccination and coming down with COVID, all they had to do was spend time at home. Okay. Now, I think this is an area that's beginning to unfold right now. And the tragedy is, I think what we may be seeing is on those people who have not been vaccinated or who have been lax in kind of guarding against acquiring this infection, I think it's a setup for another surge coming up probably in the next couple of weeks or months. It's already beginning to happen in India. Now, India is a special case because we have a different variant raging in India. It's called BA2.75. So the variant that we have here in the US is B, BA5. Now, what's the difference between these two new variants from what we had previously. Now, obviously, these are more transmissible, which means they are able to escape immunity and and kind of be be infective, more infective than the previous strains. But the good part is also they're less likely to put you into the hospital. Again, as long as you have an immune system that is intact. Now, the bad side is the protection from the previous vaccines are beginning to wane, which means you have less protection if you had the vaccine before that was targeted to the BA1 virus and the Omicron virus. So that immunity is beginning to wane. So I think we may be on the cusp of requiring for the public at least a second booster shot for those who are susceptible, and God knows. But I think what the reason that I'm ringing these alarm bells is because we need to wake up. We need to wake up. We can't let our guard down and go through another shutdown of the economy and the public and all that. That's going to be a disaster with the way the economy is going. So it's just a heads up to make sure that we take up precautions beginning now, really, because we just don't know. So, which means what? Yeah, again, I don't want to get into the politics of the freedom and stuff like that. But I think each individual person needs to make their own decision because the science is there. I mean, we have the science. So, this is not guesswork. This is not to cause unnecessary panic, but I think we need to be on our guard and be ready. So where I step in the COVID arena is to help patients with long COVID. So I'm a physician, I'm an oncologist, but my whole interest is how do we manage long COVID? I mean, there are infectious disease doctors and primary care doctors and pulmonologists who kind of have made a commitment to stay on top of how to manage acute conditions that require hospitalizations for COVID. But my interest is both on the prevention side and on how to deal with the long COVID. So that's where I step in. That's my area of interest, and we have a whole bunch of alternative stuff that we can pull out to reinforce the immune system of any individual and kind of put that extra protection in there so that way they don't end up developing serious infections that may cause mortality. So that's where I thought it would be a good idea to kind of start thinking about how are we going to handle this. So the first thing is basically awareness, and then number two is action. Taking action whichever you think is right. But so that's where I am. So any questions based on this? So I don't think I'm saying anything new out here, except to say that the new variants are more transmissible and are not able to be controlled with the present day vaccines that were built and made for the previous strains of the virus. So so that's where we are at. Just because you had a full course of vaccines before doesn't mean that you can't get the virus. You can get the virus, but the good part is I think it will still offer some protection that you don't end up in the hospital. So but again, as more and more data comes in, I think we'll learn more and more about possibly some new vaccines and some new methods of treatment.
But should there be any type of therapy that people should be using as far
Yeah,
as
the thing
to
is,
boost the immune system?
yeah, so there are a whole bunch of things that we've talked about, right? Again, we're talking about physical barriers, right? So what do? You avoid unnecessary exposure. Again, without diluting out your social life. I mean, take reasonable precautions, avoid crowded conditions, avoid people with an active, suspected COVID infection. Stay away from there. And if you're on a plane, locked up with hundreds of people, I think it just makes sense to whatever extent to protect yourself with a mask I mean, I don't think that's too much to ask. And again, just common sense. So that is the natural barriers that you can use. And then obviously, vitamin D levels, hormone levels need to be monitored. Just take reasonable precautions with, I mean, the usual supplements that we talk about. We can look at NAD IV. You can look at glutathione IV. You can look at the precursors of NAD, the supplements that we can think about. We can think about omega-3 fatty acids, fish oil. I mean, N-acetylcysteine. I mean, there's a whole slew of things that we've done this before. So, so if you can put up those building blocks again to boost up your immune system, it shouldn't cost as much, but at least we are ready. I think it's just common sense, especially if you belong to a vulnerable population. And here I'm directing, folks over the age of 65 with multiple medical issues, um, and more, who are very susceptible to serious infections and hospitalizations. I think it just makes sense. And if you have not had the vaccine, go ahead and get it done. And my wife just had the second booster dose of the vaccine just done about a week ago. So I think it's good to be ready, and hopefully this will also pass. So that way we don't have to shut down the global economy. So I think it's incumbent upon us to be, number one, aware, number two, take action, like I said. And these things do not have to create a revolution around the globe. No, we don't need to shut down companies and transportation and go to those extremes. I think just common sense approach, awareness and approach, I think should be more than helpful for us to get over this. I think because we've learned a lot over the past 2 years. So this is not anything new that we are learning, except some of the nuances maybe, with a vaccine and maybe some special antiviral medications that may come through directly, I mean, specifically addressed to this particular variant of the virus. But the problem is, because it's more transmissible, there is more room for the virus to mutate. So, what else is in store in the future? Who knows? Are we going to be at a point where we're going to be rid of COVID 19 as an infection forever? My guess is it's very unlikely. I think COVID 19 is here to stay, and it'll just keep adapting and adapting and adapting, and we just have to keep rolling. I think we live in a brand new world, but I think we'll just learn to cope. We'll learn to manage, and we'll learn to survive and thrive. I mean, so it's not that scary, but it does take a little bit of effort and commitment from people across the world. This is just not a you and me or whatever. It's for everybody. Everybody's good. So that way, we don't have to sacrifice, like I said, the economy and schooling for our kids, and shut down and just drive another disaster.
Do you remember the variant flu crisis in 2008? This is before
Yeah,
social media. I mean,
yeah,
I just remember like so much the reporting was done on it, and it was just so contagious and all the different things. But then,
yeah.
social media wasn't highly adopted. What is the like the differences? Um, I'm sure I'm not comparing apples to apples,
Yeah,
but
right, right.
but you know how we handle that compared to today, because
So
today is
again,
like
uh,
if
so
you
at that time, so the variant, I mean, the avian flu, I think was confined geographically to certain fixed areas. I don't think I ever saw a case in this part of Florida. I don't think none of the doctors that I knew were even talking about it or thinking about it. It's something that existed somewhere else, and it didn't matter to us. And it didn't really touch us personally, or even professionally, or even among my friends and relatives across the US. None of us, had any discussions about it. Whereas now, I mean, it's happening in my own neighborhood right now. I mean, my colleagues who are physicians are laid up at home for 5 7 days, because once they got diagnosed with COVID, now they're stuck at home, because it's not a good idea for them to go rounding in hospitals and expose their patients to the COVID. Who knows? So I think, so that's the big difference. I don't think it's just an awareness part that's different with the new virus compared to the avian flu. It's probably the real numbers too. In absolute numbers, I don't think we've seen anything as worse as what we've seen in the past couple of years. I mean, as far as I remember, we've never had anything like this in my lifetime, and I'm 62, right? At no time did the transportation shut down or been this bad, at least a year ago or so. Things seem to have improved right now, but I think we've swung the pendulum in the opposite direction where we've really let our guard down. I mean, so again, there's a whole lot of politics behind this and a lot of claims and counterclaims, and who knows what the truth is. But from a physician's point of view, it just makes medical sense to take just precautions, just regular precautions, shore up your immune system, and just let life go on. And like I said, we will come through this. We learn to live with it, survive it, thrive on it, and get better ways of managing and dealing with it in the future. So each subsequent wave that is going to hit us, I think we'll be better prepared. So that may sound like an optimistic view, but I think we need to wake up all the people. I'm talking about globally. I think it's time for all of us to wake up and say, okay, we can't let this slide because we can't afford to have another downturn.
So I
So
just pinned a story on the Nest, so I'm going to add it to our story too, because Scientific American they just posted this genomic sequencing is critical to our understanding of COVID.
yeah,
All this funding that we have, I'm hoping that we put some funding into this because, like they're saying, with infections still surging, the United States needs to invest in this technology to prepare for the next variant,
yeah,
especially, you got to understand where everything's coming from, what part of the world.
yeah. So listen, what about 2 months ago? There was so much of public availability of testing services. In wherever you could walk in, you could get it. I mean, even now it's available. I'm not saying no, but the traffic to the centers for COVID testing has really gone down to a point where some of these publicly available testing centers have been shut down because there's nobody coming up. So when you don't have testing, you don't know what you're dealing with, right? So you don't know if there is a new variant that's cooking that we are not aware of. So I think it's high time that we really kind of bring a focus back into screening and testing and just keeping track of this bug. Making sure it doesn't turn any more malignant than what it is already.
Yeah, I think my friend Jeff. He's gone to see you and everything. He actually got COVID without ever leaving his house. He was really
Yeah,
stressed out, and then all of a sudden he woke up feeling really sick, and then he went and got tested. He didn't take that at home test. Because a lot of people are
yeah,
just thinking the at home test is perfect enough. And I know a lot. I know some people that like tested themselves for 6-7 days, still feel like crap, still tested negative, and
yeah.
then when they went and got a PCR test, it
There it
showed that
is.
they were positive.
Yeah,
So and he didn't even leave his house.
yeah.
He didn't even go anywhere. He says, "I don't even know how
Yeah.
I got COVID." I mean,
Yes.
could that be
Again,
possible?
the thing is, I think there must have been some kind of indirect contact, right? So it could come from him touching something that had a few bugs on it, and that's it. It's easy to have this transmitted to you through indirect means. It doesn't have to be direct, right? So unless you live in a sterile balloon 24/7, I don't think there's protection. I mean, we still have to eat, we still have to drink and do whatever. So there's some indirect connection with the outside world, right? In some form of another. So when you're exposed to something that is this heavily transmissible, it doesn't take much to get in touch. I mean, it's just with the way we live. I mean, let's say you have Uber Eats deliver food to you. you I mean, who knows where the bug is? Is it on the paper? Is it on the cover? Is it on the vessel or the glass or whatever?
Yeah, that's
So
crazy. I gave
yeah,
Sleep the microphone. I know he's got COVID. I don't know how Sleep. How many times did you get COVID? I know he was sick, but not as bad because he's young. How are you, Sleep?
Doing all right. And I got COVID 3 times. Uh,
whoa,
it's because to my understanding, I believe that COVID is airborne or was airborne. Uh, and call me a conspiracy theorist if you want. It didn't come around until they implemented the 5G LTE towers. That's like the last towers that that the government implemented was the 4G LTE. That's when we had what was it, West Nile virus,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then and the 3G LTE towers it was scars.
yeah. So the thing is, so this was brought to my attention a couple of weeks ago, and man, I've been going to town and trying to do some research and trying to pull out something that can click in, and I'm yet to find something that I can have a leg on to stand when I'm arguing that particular point. So far, I don't have anything, but it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I'm looking at it from a strictly scientific point of view. For example, there was this big debate about the 1990s when the cell phones had just come out, saying, if you hold the cell phone to a year, chances are you're going to develop cancer of the brain. I'm an oncologist, right? So I need to understand this. So we know for the most part, again, there's a lot of unknowns in the cancer world. I agree, but to me, we know some of the energy stuff that happens that can cause cancers, right? So, but somehow I was working at a major institution at that time, and there were a bunch of research that was going on to record how much radiation, quote unquote, radiation was coming out of these cell phones, and there was just no data, nothing. So it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. So again, caveat: just because we don't see it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. There's probably something there that's causing it. Again, listen,
I
wherever you
mean,
go, anywhere on the planet, you cannot escape 5G, 4G, 3G, whatever G that there is. Is just no way. With the way we built the
absolutely.
world, so we are living in a soup of energy. Whether it's good or bad for us, who knows? So
So,
it's
with that being said, like, would you believe that it could possibly be biochemical warfare?
again, we can theorize all we want. I mean, listen, this is a setup for a perfect crime thriller, whether it's a movie or a book. This is perfect,
Yes, sir.
right? Right? I mean, the whole scenario can be a best-selling book. Like, if this
But
was not real life, this will be a major mega hit Marvel movie. What we've seen over the
see,
past 2.5 years, right?
my thing that I saw COVID as, like, I
Mhm.
don't watch the news or anything
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that. Like, I don't watch mainstream media, listen to music, like mainstream music, anything like that. Like, I'm not political or anything.
yeah, yeah.
But I saw it as a way for the government to prove that they could martial law their citizens.
Yeah, I mean, this has been going on for the past 2.5 years, my friend. I've been hearing this, listening to it. Again, is there a section of society who will just say the opposite? You take a bet. So
Oh,
anytime that,
absolutely.
yeah, anytime there's a crisis, okay, anytime, whatever type of crisis, whether it's
There's
medical,
always
financial, whatever,
allegations.
there'll be at least 10 different viewpoints, each claiming, each claiming to be right. Okay, so my take on this is, if it's true for you, then it's true for you,
100%. That's
right?
like with
So
me. I'm a security researcher.
yeah,
My view is security is only secure as you yourself believes that
yeah.
you are.
So what we need to do is respect each other's again. So among all these, let's say these 10 different views on a crisis, right? I think the one point that we need to agree on is, what's the most common sense approach that doesn't cost a whole lot of money, doesn't take a whole lot of effort, time, and energy, that we can implement to mitigate it. That's it. I think if we all come to that, we can each have our individual opinions, but at least take some action to mitigate it, at least to protect the vulnerable members of our society, right? So I think that's where we need to meet at the table, looking at a higher purpose. right? Forget about my viewpoint or your viewpoint. Hey, if there is a patient with cancer who's 80 years old and struggling, do we want to expose him to something? Because guess what? Over the past 2.5 years, my friend, I've lost a bunch of loved ones, who did not take the vaccine, and it breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. I'm talking about physicians that I've
Yes,
lost.
sir.
I've lost celebrities that I respected and I looked up to. A
Yes,
close
sir.
friend of mine.
That's
So
like with me, like cancer's hereditary in my family. I've lost 4 family members to cancer.
yeah,
I know how that is, dude. Trust me. Like
yeah,
that's why I do. Like I consume myself in the work.
yeah,
Like this is the one thing that makes me happy, and I don't watch the media or
yeah,
anything like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
or even engage in politics. I'm a felon. I can't vote.
yeah.
But
So again, like I said, we need to respect each other's wishes. Like I said, everybody has their own truth, right? I mean,
yes,
if
sir.
what you believe is true, that is true for you. I mean, there's no arguing that. So, but the key here is, how do we come together for the common good at a higher purpose? Yeah, we can have our battles and stuff like that, but at least at the end of the day, we need the planet to stay alive for our future generations, right? We can't sacrifice the future generations based on the wills and fancies of each one of us. I mean, I think that I think would be too selfish, right? So how do we sacrifice some of the beliefs that we have for the common good, for the long term health of the planet, and still believe in what we believe in, right? So I think we need to focus on what we need to believe in. That's right. But at least, have some semblance of being able to sit together and say, for the common good, how do we protect the planet? I think that's where we need to lead. I know it sounds like a cop out, but I think that's the only solution that we have. We have no other solutions, because just staying divided and each one of us carrying on our own way, I think the planet is going to suffer. The future generations are going to suffer. So, all right, Tanya, I think time's up. I've got a patient waiting.
Yeah, it's 30 minutes. Thank you, Steve, for joining us.
Appreciate the discussion. That was lively. Appreciate that.
Thank you, everybody, and have a great day. And I'll be back later at 6 p.m. on Social Chats SF for our Social Chats Healthy Lifestyle. And also later on today, I'll be on my Beauty Spaces bar with my co-host Sarah and Kara. And again, everyone, thanks for joining us.
All right.
And thank you. Let's get mental. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Steve. I'll talk to you later. Bye, Dr. Kumar.
Hey, listen, let's touch base again next week. Same time, same channel.